All right, what's up to all my wrestling junkies out there? You've come to the right place if you're a wrestling junkie. Welcome to Wrestling Rehab. And today I want to go ahead and talk about my favorite wrestler, basically how he became my favorite wrestler. And of course, we're talking about the excellence of execution. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. The pink and black attack one, Mr. Bret the Hitman Heart. So let's get into it. Bret the Hitman Hart came in to the WWE, back then known as the WWF, in a tag team as the Hart Foundation with Jim the Anvil Neidhart and Jimmy Hart as their manager. Now they came in as a heel tag team. So me being a kid at this time, it was easy for me to hate them, especially with their manager, Jimmy Hart, I should say. He was really good at what he did. He was very annoying. But they were a pretty good tag team. You can see their performance, especially somebody like Bret Hart and his movements and everything that he did in the ring. Jim the Anvil Neidhart was just more of a powerhouse, and he brought the charismatic out of there, the character with the laughing, the pulling of the beard, man. It was great. They were doing some really good things. And in 1987, they became tag team champions by defeating the Bulldogs. And it kind of put them a little bit more on the map by doing that. Now, it was a controversial win, but that's wrestling for you, right? I still wasn't a fan of them yet. But eventually, they did become my favorite tag team. Now, there was many more tag teams back then than there is today. And in 1990, SummerSlam 1990, they go ahead and they defeat the Demolitions in a 2 out of 3 falls match to become tag team champions for the second time. Now, what you got to understand is that Demolitions at that time had 3 members of their tag team. And that is because Axe, which is an original member, was getting older and starting suffering from health issues. Even though he would get in the ring every now and then and still, take a couple of bumps, he wasn't able to really hold his own anymore. So they inserted a guy named Crush, who later on went off and had more characters in his career. But the Hart Foundation becoming 2-time World Tag Team Champions, and to me, at that time, they were my favorite tag team. But there was really nowhere else to go with the tag team, especially with Bret Hart, who you can just tell that his in-ring performance, man, was just levels above Jim the Anvil Neidhart. That's no shot at Jim the Anvil Neidhart. He did what he had to do, and his character will always live on because of his laugh and everything that he did. Everything that he did, cutting promos on the mic. I mean, the guy would just bring it. May he rest in peace, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. So let's continue with Bret Hart. They became my favorite tag team, but now he breaks off on his own. And I got my eye on him. Still not my favorite wrestler yet. But in 1991, SummerSlam, Madison Square Garden, August 26th, he faces one Mr. Perfect. Now, both of these guys are great wrestlers. Back then, both of these guys are great wrestlers. Today, if they were in their prime, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that these guys, while they're wrestling way back in the day where you had to be huge and bodybuilder type-esque to be a top contender or to be, a champion in the wrestling game, these guys weren't that. But these guys can definitely perform in the ring. And in my opinion, this was the best match at SummerSlam 1991. One of the big things that happened was Bret the Hitman Hart kicking out of the Perfect Plex. No one had ever kicked out of the Perfect Plex until this day right here. Perfect Plex is exactly what you see right here. Mr. Perfect suplexing his opponent over, locking his hands, one behind the leg and the other one behind the neck. Nobody had ever kicked out until Bret the Hitman Hart, giving him a great big push. Bret the Hitman Hart will eventually lock him into his submission, the sharpshooter, which will go down in history as an iconic submission move, and he will win the Intercontinental Championship, giving him a bigger push, a nice big push that he really needed, because the IC title at that time was given to guys. It's probably not known today that the IC championship at that time meant that you were kind of on your way somewhere. Today, the IC title, it's won, it's dropped, it's won, it's dropped. The thing about the IC title back then, you got so many legends that held this championship. And I think it's kind of lost a little bit of its steam, a little bit of its luster. But back then, it really meant something to be IC champion. And a guy like Bret the Hitman Hart that took a lot of pride in his championships, even the tag team champions, even the Intercontinental champion. Yes, later on he'll become WWF champion, but at this point, any title that he held, he took a lot of great pride with it. And I always respected him for that. And to me, he's not the greatest IC champion, but whenever you talk about great IC champions, in my opinion, you got to talk Bret the Hitman Hart, even if he's in the lower tier. Now, we're talking 1991 here. Now, I will get to King of the Ring 1991 because he did win King of the Ring in 1991, but it wasn't that big of an accomplishment. But we'll get to that when we get to it in just a few minutes. So let's just move on. At this point, I really like Bret the Hitman Hart. He's probably not my favorite wrestler, but dang it, he is one of my favorite wrestlers. But now let's move on. One of the worst WrestleManias, in my opinion, was WrestleMania 8 that took place April 5th. Oh man, where was this WrestleMania? Indianapolis. That's where it was at. And one of the worst WrestleManias, in my opinion. I thought this WrestleMania sucked, with the exception of one match. That match being this one right here. Bret the Hitman Hart versus the late, great Roddy Piper for the Intercontinental Championship. At this point, Roddy Piper had become Intercontinental Championship. He had become the IC champion. And my goodness, what a build up to this match, and what a great match. The best match in this WrestleMania, in this sorry ass WrestleMania that I did not care for. This was the first WrestleMania that they were having a double main event. One of the main events was Macho Man versus Ric Flair. The second one being Hulk Hogan versus Sid Justice. I didn't like either one of the matches. I guess the other big thing that happened at this WrestleMania was Ultimate Warrior coming out and helping out Hulk Hogan. Outside of that, this was not a good WrestleMania, except for this match right here. Both of these guys would do their best and put on a great clinic, put on a great show, highly respectable. Both of these guys, Roddy Piper, already getting towards the end of his career, but going in there and giving it everything he's got with one Bret the Hitman Hart, who ended up getting busted open in this match. And he will win the IC champion off Roddy Piper. Great match, memorable match. I like this match. I love this match, especially with everything that was going on that night, which was really just a bunch of boring matches, man. I couldn't believe that this was actually a WrestleMania. The worst, I don't know if it's the worst WrestleMania, but it definitely was not a good one. That's for sure. At this point, guys, Bret Hart was pretty much just about my favorite wrestler. Okay, this is where Bret Hart truly actually became my favorite wrestler. SummerSlam 92, August 29th, Wembley Stadium in London. Bret the Hitman Hart versus his brother-in-law, the British Bulldog. Now, this was the main event at this SummerSlam. And again, I believe was the best match at this SummerSlam. You had on the other matches, you had the title at hand, you had Warrior, you had Macho Man, you had all this going on. But they did not compare to this match, which was the main event. You got to think about it. The Intercontinental Championship was the main event because of what these two guys brought to the table. Just the fact that they were brother-in-laws and both faces. It was something really good to look forward to. It's like, oh man, these guys are family, homes. You know what I mean? Like, how is this gonna go down? How do you see it going down? They're both baby faces. They're both likable guys, and they're both gonna meet in the ring. I want to say I recently rewatched this match not too long ago, and this match lives up to today. I was highly entertained by this match. Ultimately, after a great match, the British Bulldog comes out with the victory, pinning Bret the Hitman Hart cleanly in a 1-2-3, winning the IC title. Now, it was pretty cool afterwards, right? Because Bret Hart's sister comes into the ring, and she's the one that's married to Davey Boy Smith. And it was pretty cool to see this, man. At this point, Bret Hart, I'm not going to say he was outgrowing the IC title, but there were other things in the works for one Bret the Hitman Hart. His career was just skyrocketing. And going into this match, just knowing that he was going to be in this match, Bret the Hitman Hart had become my favorite wrestler. And then just seeing the rest of his career, what he went ahead and did with it. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk about King of the Ring. Okay, yes, there was a King of the Ring in 1991. However, it was not what we knew when it became a pay-per-view in 1993. 1993, most people believe was the first King of the Ring, and it wasn't. It was the first King of the Ring pay-per-view, and the way they had it, the format was different. It changed the game. Bret the Hitman Hart was growing, and he was growing fast. So he did win the King of the Ring in 1991, but nobody really looked at it. Nobody really said like, oh man, this is something special. It wasn't until 1993, June 13th in Dayton, Ohio, when King of the Ring took place and really took the WWF by storm. Everybody thinking like this is something new, and it was. It was and it wasn't. Like I said, yes, there was a King of the Ring before that, but this one changed the game. He goes off and wrestles 3 times that night, wrestling the likes of Razor Ramon, which was a great match. And he would go off and have even better matches with Razor Ramon later on in both of their careers. He would go off and have his second match with Mr. Perfect at King of the Ring, defeating Mr. Perfect. Again, when these two guys right here get into the ring, these two guys are technicians, homie. Okay, these two guys bring it. Their in-ring performance is superb, man. And then he will finish off the night winning King of the Ring by defeating Bam Bam Bigelow, even after Luna Vachon comes out and hits him with the steel chair. Now, these two characters right here, Bam Bam Bigelow and Bret Hart, faced each other numerous of times. Bam Bam Bigelow was a great big guy. We didn't really see big guys like him with the agility that he had. Most guys his size just kind of stood on the ground, didn't really maneuver the way he did. So he was a great big guy. Bret the Hitman Hart said that Bam Bam Bigelow is the greatest big guy of all time. I know people may have their different opinions on that, but I will say at that time, a guy his size was not moving the way he was. So obviously, Bret Hart becomes King of the Ring. He's my favorite wrestler. I'm just like, damn, this guy is badass. And look, his popularity just grew and grew and grew. And later on becomes, WWF champion. But by that time, he was already the star. He was already the guy. HBK coming up and doing his thing. They would have rivalries. A big rivalry between Bret Hart and HBK, man, which actually got pretty personal at some time. But I just want to just go ahead and throw that out there, how he became my favorite wrestler. It was leading up to 1992 SummerSlam when he was going to face the British Bulldog, where he became my favorite wrestler. All these other times, right? All these other times, I did like him. He was one of my favorite wrestlers, but he was not my favorite wrestler yet. He was not my favorite wrestler. I mean, when I saw this, maybe at this time right here, maybe I could say, all right, maybe he was my favorite wrestler there. But it was definitely this that made him my favorite wrestler leading up to it. And till this day, I still have him as my favorite wrestler of all time. Will that ever change? I'm not really sure, man. But I just want to go ahead and tell you guys, the story on how Bret the Hitman Hart became my favorite wrestler. Later on in his career, there was so much other things that went on in his career. I don't want to get to it on here. This isn't like a documentary on Bret Hart, but I just want to talk about how he became my favorite wrestler. But I'm asking you guys, I'm asking the wrestling junkies out there, you guys, who is your favorite wrestler of all time? And will it ever change? Because until this day, my favorite wrestler of all time has been and still is Bret the Hitman Hart. Will that change? I'm not really sure. Will it ever change for you guys? And who holds that special place in your wrestling junkie heart that you just can't shake off? No matter what any wrestler does, that will always be your favorite wrestler of all time. Let me know, man. Shout outs to all my wrestling junkies. I'll catch you guys next time right here on Wrestling Rehab.